All right. All right. Can we give the Kinseys another round of applause for the incredible museum? Now, they say it never rains in Southern California, but it does get a little chilly. Brother Kinsey, I want to start off kind of where we left off this summer when we got a chance to meet. And Mrs. Kinsey, the conversation that we had really about family. And I think that's an important place to start here because we've got so many more students in the room. I wanted you all to give them a little rundown of how your family story started back at FAMU many, many years ago.
First of all, Marcus, thank you so much. Geraldine, thank you so much for having us. Got the opportunity to speak to Oak Tree Capital, Alt Finance, and some of the young students that are here tonight were there this summer, and it was just a great afternoon, and really appreciate coming back, Marcus, and having the opportunity. First of all, I want everybody that's got a pen and paper to take it out, pen and paper, or get your notes section out. Because I tell you, everywhere you go, you want to make yourself available for information that may change your life. And I always carry a pen and paper because you don't know when that one thing that you heard you want to capture. So let's start with everybody, being prepared to capture some of these ideas, okay? Shirley and I met about 60 years ago at Florida A&M. Actually, 60 years this month, we met at Florida A&M. And
clap it up for that.
Yeah, great. And and simply, Shirley had gotten arrested. In 1963, Tallahassee, Atlanta, the South was totally segregated. So the college students all over the South began to demonstrate, and that demonstration is why you can be in this building today, frankly. But when I met Shirley, and I just thought this little 17-year-old young lady from St. Augustine having so much courage was pretty incredible, because back in those days you could get killed going to jail. It was nothing fun about it. So that was the beginning of this really journey that we've had together the last 60 years. And I wish all of you all this joy that I've had, that we've had in building a life. And hopefully today we'll give you some of those little nuggets that we think help guide us to this point.
So, Mrs. Kinsey, I always love the balance that you offer to Mr. Kinsey. He saw you, beautiful young woman from St. Augustine. What did you see as you were coming out of your situation? What did you think about Mr. Kinsey?
Oh, boy. First of all, I thought he was too old for me. Because I was 17 and he was about to turn 20. And I didn't have time to have a boyfriend because I really was there, as my grandmother said, to get my studies done. But there was something about him. Bernard has always had a way of, he was always able to do what he said he was going to do. And he was part of a group at that time they were helping us learn how to navigate the system in terms of understanding what we might get expelled for, or what we could do to get around some of the rules and regulations there were. And part of that was to be able to date him and know that if we went to the library, then that was okay. Also, for him to understand that if he took me, that he wanted to date me, it had to be on campus, that I did not go to parties off campus. He had to take me to the movies on campus, to the dances on campus, and have lunch on Sunday, dinner on Sunday afternoon in the cafeteria. And he fell for all of that. And some of that stuff we kind of keep going on with us now. And he still is that man in my eye who does what he says he's going to do. and that's important.
So this is 60 years ago,
60 years ago.
over 60 years ago. In the 60 years since then, you all have started and persevered and preserved an amazing marriage. You've also had one incredible son over here who is doing everything that I think you could ever ask a son to do. What were the things that you thought about putting into your son to allow him to say, I want to continue on the tradition of mom and dad?
I think Khalil probably the best to answer this, but I don't think we tried to do one specific thing with Khalil. What we wanted to do was, I think Khalil is a good blend of Shirley and I in terms of how he approaches things. And we, we always wanted to make sure that we allowed him to have access to whatever he wanted to do. And it's been a joy to watch him grow up. I always say that Khalil is the best thing that we've ever done as parents. I mean, he's a really fine young man, and I'm really proud of him.
Khalil, no pressure, brother. What did you, I'm going to flip it to your side. You're growing up, young man, a teenager, going to school, doing things yourself. Did you ever feel intimidated because of the legacy that your parents were building in raising you? Did you ever feel that there was a standard that you had to live up to? And how did you navigate that so expertly?
First off, it was not expertly at all. And absolutely, I felt a big, they cast a big shadow. And it was it was much of my early, my teenage years and early adulthood that I spent trying to get just from under that shadow. And yeah, it was not an expert mission at all. It was something in which I made a lot of mistakes. I don't know, it's a whole nother story. But just to back up a little bit, one thing that they provided for me was a very wide horizon as far as understanding that I was a citizen of the world, that the world was mine to experience just like anyone else, and that I was welcome wherever I was supposed to be wherever I was. And they as well as their friends, my uncle and aunt, all of the people that were my village, they all encouraged me and engaged me from where I was. They didn't push me to be anything. They just wanted to know what my perspective was at whatever stage of life I was in. And so I was taught that my voice was valued and my perspective was valued. But yeah, I took great pains to try to get away from my parents as far as, everything. I just wanted to be my own man, or, and everything else. And that came with a lot. I'll just say that.
The reason that I wanted to set the stage with those questions is it became very clear to me that all of the success that you've had as a family and each one of you has had individually, that the root of that is your love and values that you have as a family. It's shown in the collection of art that you've amassed over the years. It shows in the commercial success that you've had. It shows in your willingness to come and share your lives with us here today. Now that we're rooted in that, how did this story start from Florida and find its way to Los Angeles? And, let's talk about that. Let's talk about park rangers, Xerox, and flipping houses.
That's a lot. Shirley and I live our lives on two simple principles: to whom much is given, much is required, and a life of no regrets. And the second one is harder than the first. The reason why living a life of no regrets is so hard, because you have to stay in the present tense in making decisions. Too many of us make decisions that change our lives because we didn't think about it in the present tense. So I'm always about trying to stay present about making these big decisions, because in this country now, a small decision can ruin your life. So understanding that, and I said this to some of the group, we're really not interested in people that have too much. We're more interested in people that have too little. And because God has graced us with so much, we want to make sure that we're that vessel to help other people. You know, Alexander the Great, when he was buried, he told them to bury my hands outside of the casket, because he said he wanted everybody to know when he died, he walked away with nothing, because that's exactly what everyone in this room is going to do. They're going to leave with nothing. So the idea of not sharing what you have while you're alive is just antithetical to how we think about being good citizens. So I want to just leave you with that. And then in 1980, we were in Kathmandu, Nepal. We went there to see Mount Everest. And in Lagos, we just came back from Lagos with Dr. Finley last week. And that was our 110th country that we've visited since we were married. So I strongly recommend, LA ain't the world, Tallahassee is not the world, Atlanta's not the world. Go see it and start now going every place you can go and discover any and every place that you're big enough to see. My 8th grade teacher, Mr. McDonald, took us around the world in 8th grade. And that was the catalyst for what I said I wanted to do when I grew up. I wanted to go and see the world. And that's exactly what Shirley and I have done. So I just offer that.
The question was. The question was. Now tell us about. We're gonna tag team this one, Marcus.
Get him right, Khalil.
Tell us about Bernard Kinsey at the Grand Canyon.
The Grand Canyon.
Oh, the Grand Canyon. Okay. So you in our new book, this is our 5th edition here. And we got a little surprise for you when you leave. But in our new book, the 6th edition that comes out in January, there's a picture that we put in there from 1966 when myself and Nick Walker Jr., Nick, stand up and let everybody see you. All right. So Nick and I have been friends since 1961, where we met. He played saxophone in the Florida A&M Marching 100, and I played French horn. And we became friends in August of 1961 and have been friends ever since. So that's one of the things that is, for Shirley and I, you know, we count our blessings in friends, not in money, okay? We count our blessings in smiles from people, you know? So we get a chance at Florida A&M to go to Grand Canyon to integrate the park system, and we took it. When they told me they wanted me to go, I said, the only way I'm going to go is my boy goes with me. You understand? So we went to Grand Canyon, and it basically changed our lives, because I had never been on a plane. I had never seen a mountain until that particular experience. And we ended up in Grand Canyon, Arizona, and it was just extraordinary to have these 2 young Southern boys in this world of whiteness. You follow me? And our supervisor was a guy named Mr. Taylor from Natchez, Mississippi, and he told us the first day he did not want us there. And we told him, get over it, because we're not going to leave. And he put us on the night shift for the entire time we were there. So we have a saying, when someone gives you a lemon, make lemonade out of it. So instead of going around huffing and puffing, we used our daylight hours to explore the park. And we saw Grand Canyon like nobody had seen it because we took the daylight hours to do that. And at night, we did what we were our jobs. So this is a big world out here, and you have so many opportunities. But the key thing is keeping your eye on the prize.
I'm going to back up just a little bit on that. I always think about how we started collecting. And for me, it was the experience Bernard had at the Grand Canyon. We got married and moved to California. I didn't know how to drive a car. I had never seen the mountains. I didn't know there were mountains here until like November when the rains came because it was so smoggy. In June, you couldn't see anything around. But we used to always go to the Grand Canyon every year. And so that introduced us, to me particularly, to Native American culture. I fell in love with the beadwork that was done there, the basket weaving that was done, the rugs that were made, and we collected all kinds of stuff like that, really. I collected pine cones that I'd never seen before, dried flowers along the way, but this was our collecting. And so along the years, we started going to Mexico. We talked about traveling a little bit, and to see what the Tehuacans were doing. Well, they were doing the same thing that the Navajo and Hopi Indians were doing. The, what was the name of the other Indian tribe? Anyway, long story short, went down to Mexico. We also went to Canada, saw what the Eskimos were doing. And we saw all these other cultures, and we found that we were collecting our cultures. We were collecting that culture rather than ours. And ours was similar to theirs also, because we did beadwork and carpentry and carvings and rug making and all of these things. So that was our first real introduction to collecting. And then when Khalil came along, we realized that we really didn't know enough about our own culture and we needed to know more. Roots came on about 2 weeks before he was born, which really let us know that there was a way to find out things. Now, we still don't know about all of our ancestry, but for me, we collect what I call our collective ancestry. Those images you saw on the wall there, they're all our aunties and uncles. Claim them all. They're friends of your moms, your dads. They love you, and you should love them back. Bernard just said it's a big world out there. It's also a small world. Just meeting some of the students today, there were so many connections with other people in the room. We talk about friendship. These two have been friends for that long. Pam and I have been friends for 50 years. You're going to make friends in this situation that you're going to have for life, okay? You may be in different states. You may be across the country somewhere, but stay in touch with each other, okay? Become aunties and uncles to the kids that they have. It's a circle that keeps going, and that's what I'd love to see happening with the people in this room.
Fantastic.
You?
So,
By the way, this is not a fireside chat. It is cold up here.
Real fire, huh?
It's cold up.
maybe a freezer side chat. So once you get to LA, Brother Kinsey, you're one of the first Black executives, the highest producing salesperson in Xerox. How did you continue to navigate your family with this growing sense of responsibility at work?
Well, 1971, I went to Xerox, but in 1967, I integrated the sales force for Humble Oil Company, SO. And they were, because of, quote, affirmative action. Let me say this. If it wasn't any affirmative action, it wouldn't be no Black folks in these jobs. I don't know what people are talking about, okay? Because affirmative action was absolutely the reason that Nick got his job and Pam. And look what we did. Pam was 40 years with Xerox, and Nick was 38 years with Xerox. So
I spent 15.
And 15, and 20 here. So it's a misnomer about this notion because we're all qualified. It's a question of whether or not we get a shot. But 1971, there were 7 of us that started the Xerox Black Employees. And it essentially change corporate America. So what we did was, you know, white America had its club. We formed our own club, and it's called the Black Folks. Okay? And we decided that we were going to make excellence our standard bearer. So to play in the game, you had to be very good at your job. And that's what we began to recruit black people that were very talented. At one time in Xerox, literally every job that had a budget, there was someone black in it, and they were number one in the country. I was number one from 1968 till 1991. In other words, there's a thing called if you're really good at what you do, you'll get a chance to get at the table and then change what the table talks about. If you're not good, you're not going to be at the table. Matter of fact, you're going to be on the menu because somebody's going to eat you up. Okay?
That's right. That's right. And so your success at Xerox allowed your family to grow wealth. Both of your successes allowed the family to grow wealth, allowed you to provide for a young Khalil. Oh, yeah.
So this young lady here, Shirley Pooler Kinsey. So when we got married in 1967, we agreed that we would save her paycheck and live on my paycheck. And for the first 15 years, we never spent her paycheck. So let me tell you what that did. That gave us an enormous head start. Right. More importantly, it made us really work together because we have a rule right now that anything we do, it takes 2 yeses and 1 no to make big purchases. If you do that, you don't go out and somebody say, well, I'll pay the car note and you pay the house note, and somebody don't pay the car note, next thing you walking. What we were able to do over 15 years was extraordinary. So we saved so much money and then made so much money that I retired at 47. I've been retired now for 33 years, okay? You cannot do what we did downstairs on chicken feed, okay? It's a serious effort talking about collecting art. And art is very discretionary. So when you get to an art collector, that means they got a lot of the other stuff. They're not worried about paying the mortgage and paying for the car note, okay? And I'm saying to you, focus on buying a house first. That's number 1, 2, and 3. If you get a house, you will have an opportunity to be part of the wealth that creation in this country. And without a house, you're not going to be able to do it because you're only going to have receipts to show for your hard work.
Our first house, by the way, was about a half a mile from this location.
Can you believe it? A half a mile.
On 11th Avenue, right? About a half a mile from here.
Yeah. And here we are at SoFi.
Yeah. It was a racetrack then, and we used to walk around the corner. We could hear the noises coming from. We never ever came there, and now here we are. Just kind of a full circle moment. Speaking of houses, and Bernard said we bought our first house. Our second house was in San Francisco. He got promoted, and we moved to San Francisco. Bought a house there.
Yes, you can't do it.
Made money on that house. We were there for a year. Made money on that house. Came back to Los Angeles. Lived in Los Feliz for two years. You talked about flipping houses. What? Okay. Sold that one, made money on that one, moved to Orange County because he was now working in Riverside, and I said, I'm not moving to Riverside, okay? So we moved to Orange County. I was still at Xerox, and we could not work in the same office, by the way. So we moved to Orange County. He drove to Riverside, I drove to the city of Orange. He got promoted again. We moved back to, where did we move then? We moved back to the Bay Area, Oakland. Was there about 4 years. He got promoted again. We moved to Rochester, New York for about 8 months. Thought it was going to be 2 years, and he left after 8 months and came to California and said, okay, you and Khalil can stay there for the rest of the year because you got to keep the house for a year. I said, look, it's December. I don't know anything about the snow. We're coming to California with you. I said, I'll go back when the house is sold, and then did that. And we moved to San Clemente. Nick and Pam moved down to San Clemente too. We had our own little village there, really, because there were about 4 couples. And we all knew each other, good friends, kids about the same age. And that was our village.
Right.
And then we left there in 1985 and moved back to LA. and haven't stopped since. Noise, noise. Um, anyway, my friends used to always say, your house looks like a model home all the time. I said, yeah, because it's going to be sold in a couple of years. So I have to keep it looking like a model home. Moving back to LA gave us a chance to do some housing splits there that didn't require long distance moves, I should say.
Right.
Khalil was always able to stay in the same school, which was good, and have the same friends. And that's how we did it.
So
Okay.
you're building, you're saving, you're earning, you're investing. What's the first piece of art that starts the collection? Or what's the first, like, when are you motivated to say, we want to start collecting pieces of African American history, Black history, and building the Kinsey collection?
Probably a Ernie Barnes print. So there's nothing wrong with a print. If you can't afford oil or watercolor, get what you can. And Shirley will tell you that buying art, you should make your heart go pitter-patter. And if something makes your heart go pitter-patter, then that's something that should come into your home. And not worry about how much it costs or who did it. Because everybody's trying to find Ernie Barnes. The reality is, in collecting art, you need to find Ernie Barnes before he becomes Ernie Barnes. Okay? Because once he becomes Ernie Barnes, you can't afford it.
Right.
So we bought Ernie Barnes back in the 70s when he was just becoming Ernie Barnes. You see what I mean? But you don't buy art unless you read. And when you read, you sharpen your eye. And when you sharpen your eye, then you know what good art looks like. And then you can begin to acquire, because you have some sense about what makes your heart go pitter-patter, but also technique-wise and genre and all the things that go with it. So I'll just do that. Okay.
Khalil, you want to talk about how you've enhanced and curated and cared for this collection? It's free.
It's been beautiful because we've been doing this step by step together, and it truly is. You know, when I think about legacy, it's not just name, it's what you do together to make sure that the original vision is intact while adding on to that vision through your own lens and contribution, right? So I think we've been able to do that thus far, from the beginning of my parents first having the opportunity to show it publicly, and them. So, you know, I'm always very proud of the decision that they made. Most collectors that we know, that I know, they treat art as something that you keep close to the chest, and you treat as, you know, it's something different. And my parents have always thought of it as something to share for the inherent value of inspiration and empowerment and all of these things. So I grew to appreciate it through that lens as well. And, you know, in the, I don't know, 16, 17 years we've been working together now, it's been a gradual evolution in vision that we've been able to look at together now, and look at what we're doing on a grand scale and in a big picture sense, for the sake of this carrying on long after us, in the spirit of that we started it with, right? This full circle thing, that it lives on in a way that touches people, whether I'm at the helm or whoever's at it, that the values remain. And what's been so wonderful about it all is that we have these conversations about the vision. And through my time in it, I've continued to find my voice and what my contribution to it is and how I push it forward through my own lens. So you don't get to a SoFi Stadium, right, without those types of conversations and those types of visions on what are we really here to do. You have to ask why. You have to ask the whys. It's not about, you know, a certain desired outcome. It's about, why are we doing this? And when you get to the true core of the why, and I think that's in any sense, but especially in something that is mission driven, when you ask yourself the why and you answer those whys, you view opportunities differently. And so when a SoFi Stadium comes up and we say, why don't we pitch a exhibition, right? It's like people looked at us crazy, you know? But here we are, the first exhibition of its kind, and black as can be, you know? And in a way in which lots of people will see it that wouldn't likely see it. And for me, that's the core for all of it. So we've been on this very intently every day for a very long time now, and it's what wakes us up in the morning. You know, how we get this done in a way that speaks to our people and speaks to everyone from a place of connection.
Let me just say that everything you see in SoFi Stadium is Khalil Kinsey. Khalil says, what's here at SoFi, this is the blackest thing in LA. It's 100,000 feet of black folks, unimpeded. Nobody has told us what we can or cannot do, because you cannot do that with the Kinsey family. You either want it or you don't. You follow me? But you can't tell us the story we're going to tell about black folks, because we got the goods down there. We know what these people did. We know what they contributed. And we want people to see it and come away with that understanding, like you all have done tonight. And we've been here 2 years next month. No, in January. And it's still unbelievable to come in here and see what Khalil has done with the Kinsey collection. He may not have said it, but we also did 5 years at Epcot. Nobody thought you could do that either.
Disney World.
Disney World. We had 12 million people see the Kinsey collection at Disney World. And we didn't, and Shirley told them,
Blackest thing.
this ain't a small world after all, right? What did you say?
I just said, don't sanitize it. It has to be what it is.
Because at first they wanted it, but they wanted it their way. And Shirley said, Bernard, we're not going to do it. And guess what? We didn't do it. 6 months later, the CEO called me and said, Mr. Kinsey, I think we're ready to do something. So they signed us up for 3 years. It was so popular in the first 6 months, they signed it up for 5 years. They took 67,000 Disney employees through the Kinsey collection on the curriculum. That's the kind of power that's downstairs and in this book. And when you get this book, it's got a bibliography, couple hundred books, and we read every one of them. Get busy about learning about who you are and where you came from. Because until you know where you came from, you're just walking in the desert. You don't have any direction. But once you get direction, all of that emotional energy, all that gratitude will come to bear to be able to make the kind of life that you really have in your heart.
Ooh. Can we get a round of applause for that? So the footnote on that, and then we're going to go to the crowd here in a little bit. We're going to get a few questions. But I wanted to, there's some words you shared with me, which I have now sitting on my desk. It's on my computer. It's on my phone. 5 words, 4 if you hyphenate one. Long-term, non-specific, optimism. It is, in 47 years, it's among the most prophetic things that I've heard from another human being. But I wanted you to share what that means and how you develop that framework. Long-term, non-specific optimism.
Well, one of the things that we talked about with my group was 2 words, resistance, and what was the other one? Expectancy. Being black in America is like having a second job. It is. And you have to wake up every day trying to figure out what part of that are you going to play. And it's time consuming. It's hard. So what you have to do is put these 2 worlds in different parts of your brain so you can do both. Resist the racism, but also have a good life. And long-term, non-specific optimism is one way to do it. Let me give you the 3 things I think you need for a successful life. You need something to do. Let's everybody say something to do.
Something to do.
You need someone like a Shirley Kinsey. You follow me? Someone to love.
Someone to love.
And then you need something to look forward to.
Something to look forward to.
Because the way to get up in the morning, you gotta have something that says, what's my North Star? What do I need to satisfy this burning itch I got inside of me that all of us have? Some of us are lucky enough by working hard to be able to achieve that passion that we have inside. But it's a long-term, non-specific optimism that does it. I'm 80 years old, and I still have so much more I want to do with my life. So this is not like you get someplace and you say, no, I'm dying with my boots on. I know that. I have no interest in retiring and just going off into the sunset. You follow me? Because there's just too much more to do. And there's so much more that we can help each other in doing that. So I want to give you another one. Leave the door open and the ladder down. Let's everybody say that. Leave the door open and the ladder down. Say it again.
Leave the door open and
the ladder down. That is the way out for our community. When you go through a door, you want to look back and start pulling somebody in that door. Okay? And it's no fun being the only black person in something. If you're the only black person in there, shame on you. Okay? Because when you get to that pinnacle, you better be looking back and bringing somebody along with you. Okay? Because you're not going to be there long by yourself. I'll assure you. Okay?
Awesome. Look, I'm going to open up. I'm going to go 2 quick questions. I'm going to go Brianna, and who's this in the back table? Shamir. Let's go Brianna Fowler first, and then I'll come back. I'm going to get Kat Cummings, too. Brianna, do we have a mic for Brianna?
Mic.
Here, take my mic.
Yeah, you take it.
Thank you. First of all, I would like to say good evening because thank you so much for staying this late. And I know it was fireside chat. You already mentioned the weather. So thank you so much for enduring and spending this time with us. My name is Brianna Fowler. I'm a sophomore education studies major, entrepreneurship and innovation minor from Charlotte, North Carolina at Spelman College. And you mentioned liberation. It seems like self-liberation is very important to you as you're an entrepreneur and in your life. So I wanted to ask, was liberation a decision that you consciously made while you chose FAMU? And did that have to do anything with how you pick your art pieces and how you went about the art collection industry?
Well, my mom and dad met in 1939 at Florida A&M. So it was a no-brainer. There was no other college we were going to go to. My brother went to FAMU. I went to FAMU. My sister went to Howard. She should have gone to FAMU. And another sister went to Tennessee State, and she should have gone to FAMU too. So it was just part of the deal in our family. And I always wanted to play in the Florida A&M marching band. Morehouse was my second choice, but it didn't have a band. You know, and I wouldn't have met Shirley if I'd have been there. You understand? Okay.
Or it might have been Spelman.
All right. I'll take that.
Question. She asked about liberation. Let me take that. Actually, I think I can probably responsibly speak to that on your behalf. I think liberation is absolutely part of their decision making throughout. I mean, who else is going to get together in 1963, get married in 67, and say we're going to save your paycheck for 15 years, right? I mean, I just remember certain milestones. He retired. When he retired, I was like 13 years old. And I asked him why now? And he said, Xerox will never be Kinsey and Son. And from then on, I watched him, like my mom said, I watched them actually do everything that they said they were going to do. And it was always about the freedom of their time and having enough money to be able to say to dictate what they did with their time, right? And that, I think, is the ultimate liberation, right? If we're thinking about our mortality and everything else, it always comes down to time, and it comes down to the quality of our time. And so I think everything has always come down to them being able to call their own shots, indulge the passions and the things that they have deemed important in their lives, and how to get there as quickly as possible, right? And it's a little counterintuitive to even think about it, because to get there as quickly as possible meant that they needed to be patient at the same time as far as how they were building, you know? But I know that it was always about a certain level of liberation. And then when you think about what that now is translated into, and what we just, what you all experienced downstairs and the work that we do, that's the core of it all. Number one is, how do we understand enough about ourselves to demand that of ourselves and to demand that of the world around us? You know what I mean? And that comes by liberating your mind. It comes by totally changing your consciousness and elevating your consciousness, and then demanding that of others around you. You know, liberation hopefully comes with that. And I think that they've always been moving like that.
Good evening, Kenzie. I'll start off and say, as a fellow marching band member, I understand exactly what you mean. I'm a trumpet player. My name is Jamaris McElhaney. I'm a senior dual degree engineering physics student with a concentration in aerospace engineering at the
Bad boy.
at the illustrious Clark Atlanta University. And I want to, my fault, I'm sorry. I wanted to ask you just one question, because I'm a little bit cold and I'm gonna keep this brief. But growing up, starting off, going from downstairs, coming up here, honestly, I didn't know that much in depth with Black history. And growing up, you really would never seen or hear anything about this. And I want to say thank you to that, because you opened up a new side, or you're telling a story that has been overwritten, and it's needed to be told. And I wanted to say that. Now, it's going to round out to my question, which is, how do we continue on the conversation, or let alone start the conversation, for those that don't know about this type of history? That way we can continue to build it on and provide a generational wealth of knowledge to continue to pass it on.
Well, okay, first of all, I really enjoyed the opportunity for you and I to kind of get to know each other. But I read 2 hours a night for the last 40 years. I read about Black folks and money. Ain't nothing else. If you get those two things, because you need money to be able to play the game. I don't use money as something to have. I use it to keep score. You hear what I said? To keep score. To know if I'm on the track I want to be on. Okay? But money ain't something. I mean, we still are very frugal people. Shirley cuts my hair. She cuts her own hair. You follow me? Today. Okay? That's just how we are. That's just how we are. So frugality is the way to wealth. Okay? Live below your means, not above your means. And there's a quick, easy saying, it's not what you make, it's what you keep. So if you're not about saving at least 20 to 30% of your paycheck, then you're living wrong, because you're going to need it to be able to buy a house or have the economic and emotional freedom not to be tied up with people that don't respect you. You follow me? To get respect in this country, you got to be willing to have options. You got to have agency, and you don't build agency without having some ability to move. If somebody's got you in a job and you can't move, they got you. So you have to be able, and I told, Shirley and I said, baby, I ain't gonna never have anybody telling me what I'm gonna do. They may tell me for 6 months until I can figure out how to get the hell out of here, but I'm not gonna take it. Because if you don't do that, you're gonna be owned by somebody else and you're never gonna see your dreams come true, okay?
He didn't answer the question again. But salute. I'll take this one again.
Knock it out.
Now,
That's what sons are for.
before I do, I gotta just shine a light on an incredible brother that just, you been here? How long you been here, man? You just walked in? So, the brother just sat down, Mr. Brathwaite. When we talk about how we carry on and how we honor our families and honor our ancestors and honor our contributions and how that in turn we honor ourselves and we push forward. This brother has been doing the incredible work of highlighting his father's photography and artistry in the highest of levels. His father, Kwame Brathwaite. And you need to know this brother, and you need to know the work of you need to know his work and the work of his father. But it's so good to see you. So good to see you, man. I'm glad you're here. Now I forgot the question. We live by a few things we work through a few things with the collection. One is learn, use, teach. You learn something, you use it in your own life, and you teach someone else. It's like each one teach one, right? But what you do with that is you absorb what you've learned because you're using it. You employ it. You also have an understanding of what you're looking at now, right? Because once you learn the truth, as my father would say, once you learn this, you're now seeing 2020. A lot of us are walking with blinders on, especially Black America, because our history is hidden from us. So we don't see it all. It's hiding in plain sight. But once you get it, you see a lot clearer. You can see the pitfalls. You see your people in a different light. You see yourself in a different light. And then you challenge anything that ain't coming at you right. As a result of that, you stand taller. And that alone is infectious, right? But the things that you can share with others from a place of relevancy, from a place of relation, as far as, I'm gonna back up. The things that touched me the most was the things that I learned about in my past that allowed me to locate myself right now, right? Both good and bad. Things that I learned was like, oh, that's why I was treated like that. Or that's why people are on it like that, whatever it might be. But learn that there's a through line of history and things like that, it just changes it all. And the more that we can share things, I think, through the lens of relevancy, I'll say again. Things that you can contextualize in someone's life for them to get it. It takes a little time, but the context is important. And little by little, and I truly believe that I believe grassroots is the way, because the only way you can change anything is if you change yourself first.
I've never asked a question. I've never asked a question. Hi. My name's Catherine Cummings.
Come on up front. Come up
Oh,
front.
sorry. Awkward. Hi, my name's Catherine Cummings. I'm a junior economics major, Asian studies minor, attending Spelman College, originally from Montclair, New Jersey. And I want to thank you all for being here today and being so personable and open. One of the things you all mentioned was you all's love and your journey. And I wanted to know, how do you think that you all's Black love is reflected in your art collection?
Dr. Finley. Yes. Well, man. Give Dr. some question. Huh? I'm not going to tell her. Go ahead.
Hello? I can't answer. I can't answer your question, but what I will say is that some of us had the great pleasure of listening to the podcast, This Is Love, and that might be one way to answer the question for all of us. So you all should check out, there's an edition of This Is Love where the Kinseys are interviewed and their story is told. And I have to say, I got like a real big lump in my throat. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing, and it answers your question.
And I'll try to add to that a little bit too. Thank you. I can just speak from a place of observation, right? When you zoom out, it's in everything. Their love is in every bit of this, and in every part of every fabric of their being when it comes to how they've done this, right? In the first place, how they set their sights on the future together in the same way, and agreed on the future that they were moving towards, and then how they filled in as they moved on, and the artwork in the collection. Now, keep in mind what's on view right downstairs is only about 10% of the collection. The collection is quite large, and in that are personal items or things in which my parents collected because of what it represents. Whether it be a couple like Ernie Barnes downstairs with the couple that are embracing and dancing. My parents see themselves in that piece, right? There's a piece by Huey Lee Smith that's not in this show downstairs, but it's my mom's favorite piece because she sees her childhood in it, right? She sees the love that was in her childhood in it. So when you zoom out, love is baked into every bit of this, both them as a couple, their love for Black folks and humanity and arts and culture at large, as well as their love for everything that brought them to this point, And so I think that this whole thing is based on that.
That's good, Khalil. That's very good.
I tried.
And let me just. One of the things that I really, when you're downstairs, or if you're in the book, and you just see how our people overcame and achieved under so much difficulty, it's just extraordinary. And I fall in love with our people because of that. Because I want to be able to show that they matter. Our photography is more about not beauty, but we want you to see people back in the 1850s, Black people that dressed up because they wanted to be seen. Because so much of America does not want to see us, okay? You remember I told you about the myth of absence? It's being invisible presences. It's like going to a graveyard with no headstones and trying to figure out who were these people. And we know everybody in that graveyard mattered and had a life and contributed, but you don't know. And that's what our race is faced with. So what we have to do is put markers on all of our people so that they can come alive and be counted. Because if they're counted, then you will be counted. And only then will you be counted. So it's not going forward, it's going back to the root. And I say you can't start talking about Black art and not talking about Robert Scott Duncanson. This brother painted in 1850. How could you skip him and start talking about emerging artists? Okay? And that's what a lot of people want to do. Are you not talking about a Phyllis Wheatley or Equiana and people that just did so much and nobody knows? That's where I want you to start thinking. And until you start reading, you don't have a clue. And once you get this information, Khalil said it, most Americans are walking around with cataracts. Why? Because they don't understand the African American story. And once you understand it, you got 20/20 vision. And guess what? You'll never go back to the way you think. Okay? All right.
I just want to say one thing. I want to put it just a little more simpler than that. When when I think about the historical stuff that's in the collection, I always think about kids, Black History Month. Regardless of what grade you were in, from first grade on, you only heard what? About Dr. King, Mrs. Parks, maybe Frederick Douglass, maybe 5 people. But it was always the same 5 every year, regardless of what grade you were in. Think about if you had had access to what you see on in the exhibit here. You could have written a report every day on a different person who did wonderful things in building this country. And for me, that's what I love to see happen. When Khalil was growing up, his friends would come over and Bernard would give them a history lesson. And they wouldn't want to leave because they'd never heard this stuff before. And you could see the spark in their eyes and see them growing in place. And that's what happens when people come and see this exhibit. So what I'd like you to do, even though you're from other cities, anybody you know, tell them to find the Kinsey collection, wherever it's going to be, whatever city they're in. Tell them that you know us, that we're real people, we are a living couple, we're not dead. Because a lot of kids, when they come through, they think anything, and people don't like going to museums. So when it's somewhere like this, a place that they can come and feel at home, it's really, really brings it alive to them. There have been so many, how can I say it, first ever and unheard of things with our collection, which I'm very proud of. Bernard had mentioned Walt Disney World. We were at the Smithsonian. We went to Hong Kong. We're going to be opening at the Houston Holocaust Museum in January. All these are first and unheard of things, and that's important. We're making history while sharing history, and that's what I want you all to take away from this. And when you have your kids, you're going to be teaching them these same things. That book's going to stay with you forever, okay? All right, that's all I want to say.
Can we get a round of applause for the Kinseys?